Alright, so this is CELLS Standard 6. We're getting closer to the end of this one. Again, it's a lot of body parts, a lot of stuff. This one is just about the structure and function of the cytoskeleton. So just like it sounds, it is like the skeleton of a cell. It is consistent of a network of protein fibers. So here's a picture of a cytoskeleton, and it looks like a giant mess. It's really just the support of the cell, just like our own skeletons. The fibers are made up of three types. You need to know all three types of the three parts of a cytoskeleton: microtubules, microfilaments, and intermediate filaments. So microtubules, microfilaments, and intermediate filaments. So they should have been in order, but microtubules, they're the largest fibers. Again, think of this as this giant skeleton. The largest bones, or the largest fibers, are called microtubules. They shape and support the cell, and they also track for organelle movement. So they're like these fibers that the cells sort of move on. The organelles move on. The organelles, these organs inside a cell, they don't float in space. They sort of sit on these cytoskeleton fibers. We're going to talk about mitosis and meiosis later, but they actually form the spindle for it, the microtubules. And they're a component of cilia and flagella, those little hairs that we talked about earlier. Microfilaments, so microtubules, the biggest ones, microfilaments, the smallest ones. They support the cell on a smaller scale, so they actually help with the cell movement. So this is the part of the skeleton that helps the cell move. So we're talking about like muscle cell contraction, cytoplasmic streaming, amoebas, like how they move. So microfilaments are how a cell moves, microtubules, how organelles move within inside the cell. And the last one, intermediate filaments. So just like it sounds, it's like in the middle size, intermediate size. They're permanent, they don't move. They maintain shape of the cell, and they sort of fix the position of organelles. So organelles, they sort of stay in a spot, and when they're in a permanent spot, they're sitting on an intermediate filament. So if you need a picture, those of you that need like a visual, here's the microtubules. Again, this is the bigger ones, so this is sort of like a cross section of a fiber of the skeleton. Here are the smallest ones, the microfilaments, and here's the middle one, or intermediate. So again, this one is for organelles to move on. This is for how the cell actually moves, and this one's how the organelles actually stay in place, is called these intermediate filaments. So there's more stuff, more like details and stuff that you need to know. Just the basic parts. A microtubule is just like it sounds, it's a microtube. A microfilament, as you notice, both micro and intermediate filaments, you may notice they're sort of like twisted or tied like string almost. Another thing you need to know about the cytoskeleton is something called centrosomes. The centrosomes are a region where microtubules grow. So when we talk about these microtubules, or like these giant pipes or tubes, the centrosomes are where they grow. It's also called the microtubule organizing center, or MOC. Okay? Animal cells also contain something called centrioles. We'll get to that later. Just know centrosomes. That's where the cytoskeleton microtubules come from. And then the last slide, cilia and flagella. These are the parts of the cell that allow it to move. Flagella is sort of like a tail. It's long. There's very few of them, and it propels the cell through water. So flagella. So most cells that are in water, they have a flagella. Cilia is short and numerous, so these are both like hair. Flagella, think of it as like the super long hair, and cilia like short and numerous hair. And that's how it does like locomotion, so how it moves through anything, not necessarily through water, or also move through fluids. And they also have this 9+2 pattern of microtubules, and we'll talk about that later. So that is this standard. Again, know the cytoskeleton, three parts of a cytoskeleton, and then also what they're for, can you describe them, and then this last part of the cytoskeleton, the cilia and flagella.